This week on Dig Me Out.
Even though I know nothing was changing, I didn't necessarily drift off.
What is wrong with your brain?
You know, in a weird
like
way.
I couldn't stay zoned in when I was doing my notes. Like when I'm purposefully listening, trying to like write notes on the song, I was zoning out.
Tim and Jay review Beat by Bowery Electric.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dig Me Out. I'm your host, Tim Minichi, and joining me for episode 166, it's our fourth season, Mr. Jason Ziak. Jay, we had some confusion going into this episode, or more like I did, because I couldn't figure out who was requesting what, and I mixed up albums, and luckily I am prepared. There was I keep a calendar, and I couldn't even follow my own calendar. Bully on me. Bully.
Way to go, Tim.
How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing good. I'm living my first South by Southwest.
Yeah, how's that going?
So far it's been pretty normal. I live a little bit outside of things, but like even on Saturday we went to Costco, and by us not thinking anything, and
there was a band playing in Costco. There's a Costco showcase.
The music part hasn't even started yet. This is just interactive. Music doesn't start till like the middle of the week. So, but there was no parking like anywhere. Like the entire parking lot was full, and people were like parking in the grass because there was like vendors or something. You know, companies in town were probably doing demos and stuff at the Costco. So it even spills out into outside the city a bit.
I heard some chatter about them maybe like splitting up South by Southwest into separate conferences because it's just so big now that it doesn't make sense to have just one giant conference. Or I guess interactive is sort of and is kind of taken over more so than like even the music. Yeah,
it's there's an education conference. There's a film is getting really big here. And the interactive thing keeps growing, and the music it's almost like, oh yeah, and there's still a music conference to do. So I could see that. I think it overall spans maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting scene. I mean, all the locals are like, over it. That's the vibe you get. They're just like, oh, and
oh, the economy is being boosted.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I went to a meetup last night, and it was, it was cool. It's kind of fun because everywhere you go, you just get free stuff. That's the funnest part.
You're just walking down the street, and people just throwing free shit at you.
Yeah, like seriously. So, I mean, I went to this meetup.
Here, take an iPad. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, they were giving out T-shirts, and that kind of stuff, and stickers. And then we get in there, we're just standing around talking, and some guys just starts handing out Wacom styluses, like for iPads. Like that's like a $30 product. And you just walk around like, hey, you want one of these? Want one of these? I'm like, okay. And that was just at 3 hours at a meetup. So
everything you collect, Jay, is going into the Dig Me Out prize pack at the end of the year. Just so you know that. So
well, I should have grabbed some more T-shirts then.
There you go. This week we are into another requested review.
Requested review.
And this one comes from an old friend of the band who has requested many episodes previously, often ones that we are completely unfamiliar with, and often ones that are challenging. And I'm speaking, of course, of none other than David Dirty Gert Gorgos. You know him as David Gorgos on Facebook. You know him as Dirty Gert on Twitter. And he brought to us an album called Beat from a band called Bowery Electric. Jay, familiar with Bowery Electric?
No, was not.
Me neither. And
cool name.
Yeah. So let's find out about Bowery Electric in the history of the band.
History of the band.
So the band formed in New York's East Village in 1993 by Lawrence Chandler and Martha Schwendener, I think is how you say the name. The duo met while working at Andy Warhol's Interview magazine. They played their first show together in January of 1994 at Brownies in New York City, with drummer Michael Jongren completing the trio. The following year, they released their first album, the self-titled Bowery Electric, on Cranky Records. In 1996, they released this album, Beat, on Cranky and Beggar's Banquet. It was a bit of a departure from the first record, as the band had been structured around bass guitar and drums on the first record, and with the addition of samplers, the band started to work with recorded beats as opposed to a live drummer. In fact, on this album, only 4 of 10 tracks feature a live drummer, as opposed to first record. Their third album, Vertigo, came out on Beggar's Banquet in 1997, and their fourth and final album came out on Beggar's Banquet, Lush Life, in 2000. So that is the history of Bowery Electric. If you would like to suggest an album for us to review, visit the Request a Review page at digmeoutpodcast.com. We did get a little bit of feedback on this record, none from David Gorgos, but we did get some from some other folks. Scott Russell Hallgrim says, is that the sound of your fridge running, or is that the new Bowery Electric album? I'll be here all week. He also said, oh, I've been meaning to suggest a Low album. Well, then go right ahead. Go right ahead. Low is a cool band. Gavin Reed said, okay, guys, I found this and listened to it. Good luck. We're a long way off the reservation here. Sounds an interesting album to put on very softly to help you get to sleep. I don't mean that as an insult. So
good luck.
So Jay, yes, it's like Liam Neeson in Taken. Good luck. Or no, actually, that's the bad guy. Says that, not Liam Neeson. Point is, both Scott and Gavin pointed out this is an album that's a bit off the beaten path for us, to use the name of the album in the cliche that I'm using there. This is, well, let's talk about the record, Jay. Let's just get into it.
Let's get in. Let's get it. Roll up our sleeves.
Yeah.
We'll get some sauce on our fingers.
Let me say, do you want to do track by track, Jay, or would you like to go what I like, what I don't like? Well, I'm going to roll the dice.
I feel like if we do what I like, what I don't like, the episode's going to be about 10 minutes long.
You really want to go track by track through this?
So if you actually, want to make a full episode out of it, we may need to go track by track.
Okay, let's do track by track.
Okay.
I feel like we need like the sound of like a metal door, like ching ching, track by track, or some other sound effect in there. So we're going track by track. That's good because I got notes on every track, Jay, because that's how I do it. I keep notes on every track.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. So track 1, Beat, the album title right there. Talk about Beat. Let's talk about what we think of this track. I'm going to start by saying when this started, it fell into a territory that I'm actually fairly comfortable with, which is I actually like trip hop. If you're going to sort of lump it in with that sound, I'm thinking of like Portishead or Massive Attack, those sorts of bands. I'm not going to claim that I'm like the biggest trip hop historian in the world.
Is that what Portishead is?
Yeah, Portishead would be considered trip hop.
Oh, okay.
What would you consider them?
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it.
I mean, they're electronic, but I don't consider them electronic in the same way of like the Chemical Brothers or Fatboy Slim. Like, to me, they're...
So trip hop, what does it even mean? Like,
to me, trip hop,
psychedelic hip hop, or
yes, has a very like psychedelic. Usually, it's pretty slow. Usually it's hypnotic, a lot of repetitiveness. I would best describe it as it's the sound of what I think a drug den sounds like.
A drug den. Okay, like opium?
Yeah, like I imagine men with long cigarettes.
Like Saigon?
Yeah. This is the sound of Saigon in 1975, even though trip hop doesn't exist until the 1990s.
That's the image in your head?
That's the image in my head.
All right.
Anyway, no, it's usually based around a very simplistic drum and bass part, usually slow to mid-tempo, and some sort of a the keyboard or guitar part that's as simple melody-wise as possible. Portishead, I think, diverges from that at times because of I think they get a little bit more musical than like a lot of trip-hop bands do, because I think a lot of trip-hop draws influence from like shoegaze, My Bloody Valentine being the most obvious comparison, and that's where I think beat sort of meets up with a couple different elements of that. It's got this, I would say, like a mid-tempo trip-hop beat. It's got the organ and stuff going on, and these very minimalistic female vocals over top, and it's like I think it's a solid introduction into what this band is all about.
Is it? I didn't feel like there was a lot of other material on the record that sounded like this. Well, I'm sorry. Let me go back. The element that changes on the record is the drums. The other elements actually stay the same. So I think what makes this song different is it's got the clearly sampled drum loop, which it's got all the vinyl cracking and crackling sounds and all that, where it's part of the sound. Most of the record, as with this song, has a bass line that's pretty prominent. They never venture beyond probably 4 notes. I think this one features 2 or the full 7 minutes. You get 7 minutes of 2 bass notes. The atmospheric part of every song changes a little bit in terms of like on this one I couldn't really. You said it was organ. I'll go with that. I couldn't
think
really
it changes
out
a lot.
What it was. What's that?
I think that what is not drum and bass changes a lot from song to song. Whether it's a tremoloed, delayed guitar, or a sampled, or a keyboard organ, or like a washed out string section.
Yeah, I mean they use a different instrument, but it's still doing the same thing.
Okay, I see what you're saying that from that respect.
I mean, it's always playing like one. Like I think literally the organ is playing one note the whole song.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sometimes they'll play it on guitar. It'll be one note. Sometimes they'll play it on, I don't know what, some sort of keyboard for one note. But so, I mean, that's pretty much it. There's a vocal melody that minimally comes in. Mm-hmm. Again, it's probably 1 or 2 notes, and then it's gone. It seems it's like right, like towards the middle to the end of the song.
Yeah,
you don't hear the vocal much again. It's just that same rhythm. So that's pretty much it.
Track 2, Empty Words. This is where you get more of like the dreamy, shimmering guitar of My Bloody Valentine. Again, it's the with female vocal. Much more in a shoegaze than in a trip hop sort of realm. Right. I could see this as a band drawing direct influence from Loveless, and to me that, yes, it's like a 2-note, again, like a 2-note guitar part sort of shimmering back and forth, but in the way that was it Gavin said, like, it's dreamy to the point where you could probably put this on and fall asleep to it, but it's not necessarily like, I don't think it's boring. Like, I still would stay like zoned in, and like, even though I know nothing was changing, like I didn't necessarily drift off.
What is wrong with your brain?
In a weird
like
way,
I couldn't stay zoned in when I was doing my notes. Like when I'm purposefully listening, trying to like write notes on the song, I was zoning out. So
the one name we haven't brought up yet is Brian Eno, and Brian Eno sort of hangs over a lot of this for me. A lot of his experimental instrumental stuff. I find that oddly fascinating, even though I pretty much hate when anybody else does it. There's something unique about the way that Eno does it. I don't know why. And even though I should despise a lot of this sort of really slow, simplistic, droney, dreamy stuff, it somehow like worms its way into me. And I actually end up like really enjoying it as, background music in a weird way.
Well, I've had it playing the whole show so far, and it hasn't bothered me at all.
Right, exactly.
Like it hasn't distracted me one bit. I can
You
just
can
keep
just
talking
have
right
it
over
playing.
it.
Yeah.
It doesn't get in my way. I can ignore it. I can talk over it.
Well, empty words. What do you think?
It brings the real drums in, which is a shift from the first song. That's what I was saying. The first song is a bit unique in that it has that really obviously sampled drum part. This is a real drummer, I think. The guitar, I guess it's guitars. They almost sound like they're reversed. So it's a 2-note pattern, but this time it has this like a swell that sounds more like a reverse swell. The vocal, there was a little bit more of a melody to it. Wasn't quite as drony and distant and buried as the first song, but yeah. One of my notes is by a minute 30, you pretty much have heard the whole song.
Right, and by a minute 30, you've pretty much heard every song in a lot of ways, because there's not like there's choruses and bridges and, I think there's one song where they sort of have more than one part.
Yeah.
But for track 3, Without Stopping. Now this song, again, it has that like sampled drum beat part. The thing I like about this is that it reminded me of very early Elbow. And this is where I go. It has that like tribal horn. I don't know how else to describe it. Or it sounds like some sort of a animal, like making a noise. I'm not sure what it is.
Oh, I know
exactly
what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm expecting like some dude with a large ram horn to be on a horse off in the distance, calling for a legion of soldiers to come up to fight or something like that.
Yeah, it's honestly on this record it could have been a guitar, just like super affected, playing one note. But I know what you're talking about,
and I like that because that reminds me of like Elbow would throw in some really weird and strange noises on about like the first 2 records. I feel like they've gotten away from that and become more of like a mainstream sort of just orchestral pop band on the last couple of records, and it hasn't been as interesting to me. This song in particular reminded me of the first one, and again, you figured out the song in the first minute and a half, and it just kind of carries you along without much changing. Again, there's some like very ethereal vocal going on, but it's fine. It works for me. It is what it is, which is not the greatest endorsement of all time, but
Jesus. See, this is why I wanted to go track by track, because otherwise we'd just been, this album is what it is. Okay. Yeah, it's got an obvious drum machine, which there's like a progression here of like intensity in terms of the drums cutting through from track 1 to 3, with this one being the most. The drone on this song is a synth that gets a little bit, you start to get a little bit of like noise, which is kind of nice. Like there's some variation in the high notes, as opposed to the chiming guitars and the organ, which are just so like neutral. I mean, you never get any, just no like escalation, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but there's just never any like further interest beyond like the mid frequency that it is. That's one of the things that sort of, I don't know. I would think that, like, even with music like this, that you would still want to have like some kind of crescendo or a break or
Whoa,
something.
Jay, that's a lot of tension. This is not about tension. This is about massages.
Oh wait,
This is about laying it at Massage Envy and getting your back rubbed. This is not about. We don't want tension in there.
So here's a good point then. So like on this track at about like 2:30, the drone. Wait, what is it? Is it the drone or the bass? Something cuts out.
Bass.
The bass cuts out for like 10 seconds. Yep. Why bother?
Because it's a breakdown.
That's not a breakdown.
It is for them.
What is that doing? What is that doing for me?
It's letting the drums go to the forefront and take the lead for a moment.
And like,
I don't know. Maybe they hit the button on the mixer by accident and they muted the track for 10 seconds.
See, when you get this simple and so like trying to be so minimal, then I start questioning everything. You know, as a designer, I'm like, what was the purpose of, you know, pulling the bass out at 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Why not pull the bass out at 2 minutes? Why only for 10 seconds? Why not pull it out?
Maybe there's a mathematical
4
element
seconds
to it. Maybe there's some sort of math formula involved.
Like, when you strip it down that far, then all of a sudden I'm like trying to figure out what the logic is in any of this. Why does some songs go on for 5 minutes and some go on for 3?
This is supposed to be listened to in an opium den in 1967. Ho Chi Minh. I don't know.
Keep going. Just keep going with that.
Track 4, Under the Sun.
Uh-huh.
I don't really like this song. It's not really a song. It's a bass warm-up is what this song is. With some delay and some static. Somebody left some
this
static
sounds like, you know, when you're a kid and you're messing around and you get a delay pedal and you're like, ooh, what does this do? You start like farting around with a couple notes, but they made a whole song out of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, 2 notes with a bass delay on it, and it goes on arbitrarily for 3.5 minutes. Like, because it's all looped and it's the same pattern, it could have went on for 3 minutes. It could have went on for 4 minutes.
It goes on for 3 minutes and 33 seconds, Jay.
I know. Why? Like,
I don't know.
Not questioning, you know,
I think
the song in, you know, as an expression. I'm questioning why 3, why not 4, why not 5?
Why did they ever stop?
Yeah.
Why isn't it just going on forever? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Fear of Flying, because I think that's actually got some cool stuff going on. More up tempo for this band. It's like a frigging punk rock song. It's got that shimmery sort of My Bloody Valentine guitar going on with the delay, and it's got a repetitive but distinct bass line that's actually got a little melody in there. It's pretty much the same thing from the start all the way to the end of the 5.5 minutes. Yeah. But I like it in terms of what it is. I mean, it's no beat, but it's pretty strong on its own in terms of actually sounding somewhat like a song.
Yeah, I mean, up until this point on the record, it's just sonically, it's what's most interesting to me because it's complete sounding. There's there's high end, there's low end, there's mid, there's some layering, there's some texture. There's no vocal on it, right?
No.
It, I guess, would be nice for maybe like an art film, like a driving scene to put under somebody driving in the desert. I don't know. Like I could see it in a movie, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a song? I guess.
Speaking of scenes from movies, track 6, Looped. I made when the movie Looper was out.
Yeah.
Did you see that with Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
When he's in the scene where in the restaurant with Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis punches him in the face. He's got the gun underneath the table, I think, and he like punches him in the face, I think.
Okay.
I wanted him to go, "You just got looped."
Oh God.
But he didn't, because it was written by an actual screenwriter. Because Bruce Willis would have like a cool line in a Bruce Willis action film.
Oh, true.
That's what I'm saying. This has no correlation to this song whatsoever, but there's really nothing to this song. It's just the rise and fall of a single note.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't know. Keyboards, like bad keyboards, always have like a bell sound.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like somebody's using the bell sound on the keyboard and running it through like a ton of effects, and then just keep hitting it.
Now,
and this is the one that I got into. I started analyzing the, if you're gonna have a sound loop,
why make it 2 minutes?
2.5 minutes. I was like, how did they determine the length of this shit? Why not 3 minutes? That's my note.
Okay, so for track 7, Blacklight, we actually have more than one part in this song, which causes the song to go. Too. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff going on. This song is like overwhelming with all the stuff that's going on.
It's like Dream Theater.
It is.
It's like a Rush song.
This one I had a hard time trying to figure out if it was a guitar or a keyboard.
Yeah.
I was able to pick it out in a lot of songs, but this could be one or the other. At this point, there's very little separating the songs in terms of if they have drums and bass and either a keyboard or a guitar. It's hard to describe them in a way in which we haven't already described things that have happened before on this album. Yeah. So I'm like reaching for another sort of description other than it sounds like My Bloody Valentine, or it sounds like, Brian Eno or Massive Attack or whatever we mentioned earlier. But
isn't there, my notes I had that I thought this was a song where there's like a male vocal, but then as I analyzed it more, it almost sounded like it was both of them singing.
I thought it was just a guy.
I thought I could hear a little high end in it, but it's so atmospheric and affected. Right. It's, who knows?
Yeah.
But I guess if you, other than that, what you're going to call it, what I would call it is a little different on this one is that I feel like the guitar, if that's what it is, it starts to approach tension.
There is. Yeah. I mean, it's no explosions in the sky, but they definitely build some tension a little in this song, which is revolutionary for this band. Track 8, Inside Out, a little bit longer.
Yeah, I have the bass on. It's funny because there's less. I don't think there's any. Well, no, there's less of the the drone over top, the high end. So you're really left with just a bass line and drums and very minimal accents on guitar. And I felt like the bass is almost like he's got 4 notes to pick from and he's just randomly picking one of the 4. Because I was trying to figure out what the pattern was and it was varying a little bit. So I was like, I wonder if he's just like, because he doesn't have to lock up with a guitar player or whoever's playing bass. We're just like, well, screw it. I mean, as long as I keep the rhythm the same and I pick from one of the 4 notes, like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter. that was the one thing that I noticed about this song that was a little bit different. It's not less, the repetitive 2-note bass thing.
This song kind of sounds like if when a band is on stage and they've run out of stuff to jam on.
Yeah.
They just kind of are like waiting for someone to take over on the jam.
Right.
Like,
so we step in.
The guitar player is clearly switching guitars at this point, so the rest of the band's just going to kind of fill in. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of holding the steady groove, but
it's 7 minutes of that.
Yes, it's a long guitar change. He's got a restring and there's some alternate tunings going on.
He's building a guitar over there.
Yeah, he's actually fashioning a guitar out of a tree trunk. Track 8, Coming Down, gets...
I mean 9.
Sorry, track 9, Coming Down. You get a little bit more tempo to this song, probably up into the 40 or 50 range.
Woo, it's flying.
It is. It goes by in almost 4.5 minutes, so they're cooking. And this is one that also does feature a little bit of a build. Towards the end, there's a part at like 3:10 where the band actually like sort of picks up in terms of intensity. He switches it's obviously live drums because there's actually like some fills going on.
Well, he kind of like, I don't know if he does a real fill, but he does shift the rhythm, like the accents. He like shifts to the opposite accent, which I'm like, oh, this is going somewhere, and then the song pretty much trails off and ends that way.
Yeah.
Shit.
There was an opportunity to do something, but they decided not to go that way with it. And then we get to Postscript.
Woo!
Which is 16 minutes and 43 seconds of basically an organ playing a note. Sounds like a Hammond, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you slowly get like this arpeggio. Reminded me of the Tron soundtrack. I don't know if anybody listened to the Tron soundtrack. The new one, not the old one.
The arpeggio is really subtle.
And then there's like some noise at the end. That's about it. 16 minutes of that. So excellent soundtrack music for Tron Legacy, but not necessarily. Well, it would be in like be in some sort of scene where I imagine the character has been sedated,
right?
And they're in some sort of a dream world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit it. This whole record is like being sedated.
Yes,
I guess the point of it is to be numb, to not feel anything, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then we wrap up with Low Density, which Scott Russell Helgram made the comment about a fridge running.
That song is not on the Spotify version.
It's a bonus track, Jay.
It ends at 10.
Oh.
So I don't have that song.
Oh.
Tell me about it.
It sounds like a fridge running.
Oh. Well, geez. With
some very distant trip hop drums in the background. And that's it. So that is our track by track of Beat by Bowery Electric. Now you would think from our tone that I was not going to give it a worthy album. You'd be right. But I actually think that there's an EP worth of like, some trip hop-ish, ambient, very mellow, opium smoking music that's on here that I can appreciate. And I would probably go with tracks 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Make a little EP, put that on when I want to chill out, and I'd be good with that. Jay, what songs are going to make it into your heavy rotation?
See what you did there. I obviously don't get this, so I can't even qualify whether any of it's any good or not. It's so far from what I look for in music. I mean, just from the simple fact, if you break it down, I mean, if the point of this is to not feel anything, that's exactly the opposite of what I look for in music. Like even if it's over the top, I'd rather have something that at least, Well,
I don't think it's
in the most cornball way will make me feel something, whether it's hate or whatever, joy or whatever. But this is just completely, you're just completely numb. I don't know. At least I was. And as I listen to it and break it down, that's my take on what the point of it is, which in terms of an artistic pursuit is fine. It's just not one that I'm not interested in, listening to.
So you're not even giving this a single. We are breaking new ground here, Jay. On the rating scale, were the album better EP, decent single? You can't even come up with a single for this.
I could pick like Blacklight or something, maybe, yeah, probably that. And it wasn't like we've listened to some records where, there'll be songs where like I can't make it through them. You know what I mean? It's tough to, when they come on, I'm itching to push next.
Right.
I didn't feel that way. I just didn't feel anything at all. It was just like, whatever, it was on and I paid no attention to it until, I absolutely had to. So, and even then it was difficult to pay attention to it. Like I found myself like browsing the web. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be grading comments on this song.
This is good browsing the web music.
Yeah.
Because it's on, but you're not going to get distracted.
It's good music to listen to when you're doing a podcast or...
You can actually do the podcast while you listen to it. Well, there you go, folks. And we want to thank David Gorgos for bringing this to us because it gave me a chance to talk about my secret appreciation of trip hop. So,
oh boy, thanks for that.
Yeah. And my script revision to Looper as well. So, if you have an album you'd like us to review, visit the Request a Review page at digmeoutpodcast.com. And of course, if you like what you heard, please consider leaving us some positive feedback at iTunes. Jay, we're going to be back next week with another Request a Review. And I think, Jay, that one might break the 70 BPM mark. I'm not sure.
Wake me up.
Yeah. I think it's going to go in the complete opposite direction.
All right.
So I think it might be so fast that you're like, slow it down. You're so loud and crazy.
I think the two will balance each other out.
There you go. That's what we're about here. Balance. Bringing balance to the force. Please don't sue me, George Lucas, for saying that. That's it. We got another one in the books. And for Jay, I'm Tim. We'll be back next week with another episode of Dig Me Out.
Join the conversation about this episode at digmeoutpodcast.com, where you can find links to our Facebook page and Twitter feed, as well as links to our Request a Review and merchandise pages. This week on Good. This week on Dig Me Out, Tim and Jay review Bent by Bowery Electric. Bowery Electric. Bowery Electric. Bowery